artists want to focus on the newest thing because the newest thing presents the possibility. Like when a new thing comes out, there might be a new vehicle, a new avenue. It presents the possibility that you don't have to do the thing that's old as dirt that you don't want to do.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast brought to you by Entrepreneur.io.
What's up, Indies? Welcome back to the Creative Juice podcast. This is episode 279, and I swore we weren't going to do an episode about mindset and thinking and breaking your brain, but here we are today.
Don't turn it off. Don't turn it off.
Please don't turn it off. I'm your host, Jack McCarthy. With me, as always, is my amazing co-host and co-pilot, Circa. What's up, dude?
Dude, just kicking it.
You ready to break your brain today?
I'm so excited.
I think this is going to be a fun episode. Something a little bit different. Cirque and I have been getting, I would like to say, pretty tactical in this last arc that we've been doing, talking a lot about ads and creative and, making great content and writing copy and what to focus on in your business. And this is kind of, I think, zooming out 30,000 foot view with something that we've seen over the years. At this point, between our agency, IndieX, our coaching program here at Entrepreneur, Indie Founder, and the Indie Pro community, talking to thousands of artists at this point, something that a lot of artists really struggle with in growing their businesses and in growing their careers. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. So I'm super excited.
I'm pumped.
Hell yeah. Well, the concept that we wanted to talk about a little bit today that I think a lot of artists struggle with is the concept of, in your music career, doing more of what works and doing less of what doesn't. And this gets into really trying to avoid shiny object syndrome. And I think personally, based on my experience talking with a lot of artists, and I'm curious of your thoughts here, Cirque, I think my experience tells me that the reason artists struggle with this concept in their business is that a lot of what's going on out there in the wild that artists are seeing and watching and mimicking is stuff that doesn't work. And so we can get into that, talk about that, and hopefully give you guys a little bit of a reframe in your thinking if you feel like you're stuck or, running on a hamster wheel in growing your own music career.
Yeah, I just did a full stack creative video that should be coming out soon about Dukes' free push shipping and handling funnel. And kind of in that video, I did a little bit of dealing with like objections or retorts that someone might have to the story. And, it centered a lot around this, that like the examples you get for like the reason that I went wrong way back in the day when I first tried music marketing is because I just followed the examples I got from the industry. And, hopefully we can talk today about why that's like really, really a poor place to get your cues from, and could certainly lead you down a rabbit hole if you choose to follow that.
For sure. Yeah. And if that episode is out by the time that this episode airs, we'll link to it in the show notes so that you guys can check it out, because I haven't seen it yet either. So I'm definitely excited to check it out. But I think that's probably a good jumping off point here. Is you're right. Like there's a lot of conventional wisdom in the music industry. There's a lot of advice. There's a lot of stuff that you see out there, and even things that we've spent time researching and kind of monitoring and watching as we go for building up our own business and thinking about how we serve our clients better at the agency. We watch what's going on out there and we see how people are mimicking the things that, maybe they shouldn't be. And for indies, that can be really, really dangerous, especially if you're at the, beginning stages of just trying to grow a fan base, or if you're at the stages of you've got a fan base and you're trying to monetize it. Both of those levels can find you stuck if you're paying attention to the wrong things and then trying to mimic the wrong things and focusing on doing the things that don't work.
Yeah, let's get into it, because there's definitely a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, for sure. I think, one thing that's particularly top of mind for me right now is I spent a lot of time in the end of the first quarter of this year and the beginning of the second quarter doing a lot of research on artists on the Billboard charts and looking into what they were doing in their marketing. And we'll have to do a future episode kind of breaking down all of the findings and research and digging that I did, because it was a ton of fun. And there was definitely some lessons to be learned there on like just how you can be, 9 steps ahead of a lot of what's going on. We could detail that point by point. But the common thing that I want to talk about from that is like, if you go and watch what Beyonce is doing or Bruno Mars is doing, or, name any really, household name artist, a lot of the stuff that you might pick up on isn't really stuff that you should be mimicking per se. A lot of it is, we've talked about this before fairly recently on the show, where we talked about, Madison Ave style marketing, where it's, spray and pray, big brand awareness type stuff that doesn't necessarily drive a result. And it doesn't really matter for those people that are using those kind of campaigns whether it drives a result. But for artists out there in the wild, if you're seeing that and thinking, I'm trying these things, or I'm trying to mimic them in my microcosm of a business, and I'm not getting anywhere, that's probably why.
Yeah. There's a real selection bias in the music industry. Basically, like all of the examples that you'll get from the music industry about what to do. You're looking your example, your sample is such a slim minority of what's out there. Like 1,000th, 10,000th, 100,000th of a percent of those out there. And that's just those who are doing it full time. That's not even like everyone trying, So when you look to superstars for your cues about, how to pursue a music career, a full-time music career, it's sort of like looking at, I would say like a pro basketball player for like how you should practice and you've just started. I'm sure there are a lot better examples out there, but like the problem with it is that it's also a reason why your findings were the way they were when you went to go research the industry, is like the greatest amount of mistakes are being perpetrated by those at the very echelon of the music industry because they can afford to. They can afford to leave tons of money on the table, on the ground.
It's a pit of leaving money on the table, and then money is just burning on the ground below it.
They have bad practices because like, it's like they don't need to. They don't need to pick up all the missed opportunities. They don't need to, do this or that. They don't need to do things to spec because they're drinking from a fire hose, So it doesn't matter if some water spills out. It's like looking at Facebook for cues on how to run your small business. You just talk about a company that literally wasted billions of dollars on middle managers they didn't need, people who were paid to do nothing. If you do that in your small business, you're gonna fail really fast, really hard.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's kind of a vicious cycle that happens then when trends change in the music industry or new things pop up. Right now a lot of people are talking about Threads, the Instagram app, the Twitter clone that has come out of Meta. And I have nothing against Threads. I signed up for it. I'm kind of excited to use it. But a lot of people are talking about it, and I've had artists already asking me like, what do you think is the best way to utilize Threads?
Yeah, like a new technology will drop, and the a priori assumption is that it is useful for X purpose.
Right. It's interesting when that kind of stuff comes up because it points to, I think, this cycle that we're talking about, that music industry focuses on things, shiny object comes along, music industry and massive artists focus on other things, and everyone else, kind of like that scene from The Lord of the Rings where Frodo puts the ring on and Sauron's eye just shifts over to him and everybody's paying attention to him. That's kind of what happens when a shiny object comes into the music industry's consciousness. And I think that it's a trickle down that happens sort of across everybody, and the artists and the businesses who suffer the most are the ones who were starting to make traction in what they were doing and it was working for them, but then they get distracted by something else.
Oh yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah, like we've seen multiple turnings of this, right? As a company, we've been around for multiple Facebook apocalypses, TikTok, and before that Instagram TV.
Oh, Instagram TV, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and like whenever a new technology that like can be used as an influencer comes out, like immediately musicians are wondering how to leverage it. And it's like the person best positioned to leverage a new technology is one who's already successful at leveraging a previous technology. It's no mistake that Ed was able to quickly bootstrap onto TikTok and start seeing results. Is like he's already great at making content. He's already great at talking to an audience.
Right.
It's definitely not a mistake. It's natural for people to see a new tech come out, especially a social tech, and be like, oh, I'm struggling with doing this larger umbrella of things. Maybe this is my vehicle to break through. And chances are it's not. So that's one of the ways you can get tripped up. Or like, let's just boil it down. Like trying to pursue a business of any
business,
sort.
yeah.
Yeah. A good concept to kind of go over here is edge. In like stock trading or crypto trading, people talk a lot about edge, which is like, okay, there's all these other people out there trying to make a profit from trading. Why are you going to beat them? Do you know something they don't? Do you possess a skill they do not? Is there a reason why you would be the one to profit out of this market as opposed to like people who've been doing it for years and are like gigabrain psychos? Like,
right.
What's your edge? And it's like, if your edge is like, I just found out Threads is a thing and I'm going to download it, like that's not an edge.
Tight, yeah.
That's not, everyone has that edge. So yeah, I think it's important to think about it that way, just because you can easily get tripped up thinking you have, or thinking this new thing is now going to be your edge, when like you just found out about it from a news article. Like it's in the news already. There's no edge to be extracted. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point to make here. I would be so bold to say, from a mindset perspective and a focus perspective in your business, if you're hearing us say any of this and you're either in the camp of like, okay, guys, I hear you, like I'm not going to get distracted, or you're rolling your eyes and being like, okay, then what? Like, I would argue that your edge, or the possible competitive edge that you could have amongst the masses of people who are getting distracted by things day to day and not growing as a result of it, your edge could be the focusing down of the things that work for you already. And I guess I'll start by saying, like, if you're someone that nothing is working for you right now, like that's a whole different set of problems that maybe we won't address in this episode. Like we're not here to get you from 0 to, 1. But if you're at a place where you've got momentum happening with something, whether that's the content you're creating and you're starting to get, organic traction, or you're running ads that are working well for you for growing a fan base, or you're starting to get people on your list, people coming out to your shows, customers into your store, wherever your launching off point is at right now, or your success points in your business are, your edge compared to the rest of the artists, bands, creatives that are out there in the marketplace right now competing for the attention of audiences, your edge is just to continue to do what you do well and start to do probably more of it, instead of getting distracted and devoting some of your time to something else.
An edge is like literally an edge. Like if you go to stock trading and you ask like, what are some examples of common edges? Ones that are not information based are character trait based. And one of them is patience. Patience is a real edge. You could have no other like insider info, or, you have no analysis that showed you something that others won't see. It could just be that you're very patient. Lack of greed is an edge. So like there are natural edges that have to do with character traits. And if you can like train yourself on these character traits, you can eke out. And so not following shiny objects is an edge. Another good way to say it is like you want to participate where others are unwilling to participate. Patience is a form of that, but another form of it is doing things that other people don't want to do. And so by focusing on the fundamentals, focusing on, things that are less exciting, you might actually have an edge in the music industry. And so the exciting things are like being famous, having people adore you. You can tell it's not an edge because everyone wants that. Everyone has that desire. So it's the furthest thing from an edge you can possibly have. So the opposite or the inverse of that, putting up with not having, worldwide adoration, or being happy with small but cumulative building adoration, like that can actually be an edge. And, one of the things in business, like it's very similar. Like everyone like, dude, like how many people have I talked to where like the presumption is that like the thing that's important right now is finding a legal structure for the business, registering everywhere, and building like getting a logo. Like,
I was just talking to a buddy of mine the other day who is thinking about building a side business during, while he's doing his day job instead of looking for a new job. And I'm like, cool, man, that's great. Like entrepreneurism, amazing. Obviously, support big time. But that immediately came with the questions of like, hey man, where should I buy my domain? And like, how do you think I should build my website? And I'm like, bro, I think you need to just focus on getting a customer first and worry about all that other stuff later.
yeah, like sales is scary because it's a form of confrontation and it makes it uncomfortable. And so it's something that nobody wants to do. And you can tell that by the fact that like the salesperson at my wife's company is pulling in like 300 grand or some shit in salary. Like they're highly paid folks. And the management at that company is not going to ever say anything to the sales team. Why? Because it's the lifeblood of the business.
Right.
The person who's willing to go out there and make hundreds of those confrontations every day is supremely valuable because no one else wants to do it. That's a literal edge. So one edge is like learning how to sell. Like it's the supreme edge because very few people want to do it, actually go through the work of learning. And then very few people want to practice it and go through all the suck and the no's. In a dating scenario, like in college, like you'd see that one guy who's like, you're like, how does anyone ever like do anything with you? Like a date, whatever. Like, how does this happen? And it's like, that guy fucking asked like 300 people out, like in a week. And, like he's willing to get said no to. He's unafraid. And that's an edge. In the dating market, that's an edge. It's an edge to be unafraid to be rejected. And sales is a lot like that. So for artists out there, everybody wants to make music, dude. It's not an edge. Everyone in the world wants to make music, okay? Like even people who don't make music want to make music. And everyone wants to have a fan base and everyone wants to play live shows. What are you going to do in return for your edge extraction? What are you going to suffer? What are you going to sacrifice? And I think like starting from a place of like, okay, I'm going to do all the things that suck about building a business for my music career that suck at first, like until you're good at doing them. And then it's rocks. Like it's very thrilling. But if you can resolve that, like, okay, I'm going to do that for my music career, like, then you actually have an edge. And like, certainly like looking at like what the most famous artists in the world are doing and then copying it wholesale is not an edge. So yeah, that's just to say that you should pay close attention to like the activities you're doing and your desires and, how you plan to go about this in any career path, any business path. And determine like, am I doing something others are not willing to do? Am I exhibiting a character trait that others do not or cannot possess? Because if not, then you probably don't have an edge and you're probably not going to eke out the 99.99999% of people who fail at it.
Dude, I love breaking down the idea of an information-based edge and a character trait-based edge because I think that's really important. It's an important distinction to make, both from just the perspective of like understanding the concept, but also to recognize that like as a business person in a creative business, like your character traits matter, and beyond your creativity, your ability to be patient, resilient, focused, all of those things give you, a competitive edge against everybody else. And that's That's pretty critical. I mean, I think we've seen this even in our own business here at Entrepreneur. Like, how often have you and I sat down in a meeting together and been like, okay, we need to refocus? Like, really, this whole year has been like that for us.
Yeah, it's pretty frequent. So much of growing this business has been about like doing really appearing remarkable has to do with doing things that your competitors are not willing to do. You know, whether that be how you price your products, whether that be your level of support and customer service, whether that be, you know, your willingness to get rejected and make a lot of offers. Because like one of the main reasons people don't make offers like underneath it all is that they're afraid of rejection or they're afraid of failure.
Right. We were just having a conversation today with the whole IndieX team about sales ad copy in particular, and talking with clients about that, because still to this day we have clients at the agency who are nervous about sales ad copy or sales email copy, and breaking down, coming at them kind of from a curiosity standpoint. So I guess for anybody listening to this, that maybe you have band members or management or people on your team that might worry about the way that you present yourself, what I've always thought about and recommended is like, take a curious approach to overcoming that objection and being like, like, why? Like, why do you feel that way? Like, what is it about this? Name specifically for me what about this feels salesy to you, because there's things that you can negotiate about, and then there's just ignorance that you can overcome. What makes good sales copy? Why do certain elements need to be in place? Why do we construct copy the way that we do? And yeah, exactly like you were saying, like there's that fear comes into place all the time, even with artists that are doing really, really well. All of the artists really that work with us at the agency are doing great, but there's still that, nervousness about going out there and taking a swing for it.
Yeah, it's funny because like a lot of people are afraid to be aggressive in their sales copy or in their sales messaging. I guess aggressive is the wrong word, like to actually make the pitch. Like people are afraid. And a lot of times like the reason given for that is that like they don't want to harm their brand. And it's interesting because it's like, how would selling a product harm your brand? Like either you don't believe in the product you're selling, or you're afraid and you're foisting the responsibility of that onto like this preservation of your brand. And a lot of people will give that reason before they have a brand. Like brands are built on many, many customer to business interactions. And if there's no customer to business interactions, like sales transactions, then like there's no brand to be had.
90% of the time, I would say, when a brand argument comes up with me, it's like, oh, what are we really talking about here? Like, let's get to the core of it. It's not about your brand.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's just to say that like artists want to focus on the newest thing because the newest thing presents the possibility. Like when a new thing comes out, there might be a new vehicle, a new avenue. It presents the possibility that you don't have to do the thing that's old as dirt that you don't want to do.
The boring work.
Right. You might not have to do that if this thing really works out. So I think that's why people put a lot of stock into shiny objects, is just that like, oh, I might be able to do this easier.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I've seen this play out, just like we were saying, we've seen it play out in our own business. I've seen this play out with artists at the agency just as much. People that I'm working with directly, like we did an episode a few weeks back where we talked about, kind of pulling an artist out of a hole that they had found themselves in, which had been created because they were, taking their focus away from the things that were working. And that's not uncommon to have happen. So if I can pass any wisdom on from the agency or anything tactical or strategic that you could apply to your own music career, is like, if you've got something that's working for you, continue doing that and find ways to do more of it. Whether that's, let's take content creation for example, right? Let's say you're really great at creating video and you've really nailed it, and you found formats, sets, settings, copy that's working really well and resonating with an audience that you're trying to attract. Could be organic, could be with ads, doesn't really matter, but let's use this for the sake of example. and you're, creating, I don't know, 3 pieces of content a week. Find ways to do more of that. See if you can scale that up double. Maybe that's involving more people in your band. Maybe that's hiring a videographer. Maybe that's hiring an editor or an assistant so that you can be doing more and getting more for your time. Maybe that is expanding your content onto different platforms and using different formats, different channels, focusing in on that rather than, going on to the next, okay, I've got this figured out. Now I'm going to go chase booking agents, or I'm going to try to figure out threads, focusing more on the thing that is working for you rather than, going off into something new, or doing what you're already doing just a touch better. That's another pathway that you can take to it. A quick nod here to Alex Hormozy, who I really dig his content. He's talked about this concept of like the things that you should do in your business. Do more of what's working well, do it better before moving on to something new. It's a really simple concept, and it really resonated with me and things that we've seen here and the things that I've seen with our clients at the agency.
Yeah. We've been talking since I returned full time to the pod, like we've talked a lot about, the indies in our team and in our community who are growing at a profit. And that's what I did that video about, is like how remarkable is it that you can get paid to grow a fan base? Like, that's insane. That's not something that I would have ever thought would be the result, going back 10 years. And when I started trying to market music, is like, that's crazy. And to get to a place where you can do that, you basically have to learn a whole bunch of skills that are not the thing that everyone wants to do when they become an artist or before they become an artist. It's like, everyone wants to make music, dude. Everyone wants to figure out the album cover. Everyone wants to like create culture. That's fun. What nobody wants to do when growing a business is learn how to advertise, is learn how to email market, is learn how to build websites. Like, that's not fun.
Yeah, unless you're a nerd like us.
Yeah. Like, it's fun once you get into it, but the outset is not fun. Because what you have to do is you have to accept that you know nothing in this arena, and you have to start listening to other people, and that's like an ego hit. You have to sort of let yourself be swallowed up by this like world of information. And for me, it's like if I'm dealing with an indie artist, like, fresh out, and they really have those aspirations and they really don't want to do anything else with their life, like, I would tell them, like, dude, learn online entrepreneurial skills, and then you can do that or anything else you want to, because it's like a meta set of skills. You can use it to build any type of business, but if you use it to build this type of business, you can get to a place where you're actually making money while gaining the adoration and the fan base that you want. And it takes time to get there, but it's like the coolest thing in the world. But so many people are unwilling to do that. Like, that is a true edge. If you're here day one saying like, I want to learn advertising, email marketing, I want to learn how to build websites, and I want to sell my artwork, I want to actually try to sell it for money today, you have an insane edge, because there's nobody else getting into music who's like that. There's very few people like that.
I sort of feel like, that's a little bit of our manifesto going into the remainder of this year, is firing up indies to take that idea and really internalize it. I think that it's super important. I couldn't agree with you more. There's a fire that needs to happen inside you for learning, much like probably what it felt like when you picked up an instrument for the first time. That feeling of locking yourself. I mean, I remember when I was first learning to advertise, and when I was first thinking about writing copy, like getting sucked onto a screen and being like, oh my gosh, like this is insane, and there's so much to see here, and there's so much to learn, and I can tinker with it, and I can copy and paste things, and I can take sales letters and rewrite them because I think it's fun and cool. Like, yeah, that's me being a little bit of a nerd, but that's not really any different from me being a 9-year-old nerd messing around with my guitar when other kids were out, kicking a soccer ball around,
Yeah. It is distinctly rewarding to like, okay, when I first started playing guitar, let's take that. Like, I fucking sucked. But I wanted to do it so bad because I knew that there was a day when I would play and someone else would be impressed by it. And that drove me forward. And I feel like you can suffer not being good, or you can suffer sucking if you have a day in mind that you're heading towards. And yeah, it's just insane. Like what I spoke mostly about Dukes in that video today. It's insane what Dukes is doing and that he's able to do it. It's the coolest thing in the world. It's like our artists don't know how good they have it. Like that's possible today. If you commit to learning how to grow a business, like there's a day when you get paid to do the thing that you love and it doesn't feel like work. Some days it's going to feel like work, but like largely it will not feel like struggling through actually learning how to do it. And so, yeah, like I'll just say that like that's the day in mind that you should have. And that's what we mean when we say like treat your artistry like a business. It's like literally treat it like a business. Literally treat it like you're selling widgets until you understand the nuances of what that actually means. Like disavow any sort of picture of how this is going to work that was handed down to you from all that you've absorbed from watching other musicians and learning about the music industry. Just like throw it out and just like consider yourself among the community of other people trying to be business owners, trying to be entrepreneurs. I think it'll serve you a lot more than like thinking that you are actually in a community that contains like Beyonce and Jay-Z.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of community, if any of this inspired you and you're like sitting in a position right now and you're like, I really want to just dial in and be focused and do more of what's working for me right now and stop getting distracted. If you're not in the Indie Pro community, you need to join us and you need to be a part of this community where everybody is focusing down and come into the community, learn the strategies that we talk about on this podcast in way more depth and dive in. I think you'll really enjoy it. So we'll leave a link to Indie Pro in the show notes. We'd love to see you in here with us. And for all of our listeners that are a part of Indie Pro already, I know they would love to see you in here as well so that we can all cheer you.
They really would. They're a great gang and they're super supportive. And not only that, but like, I just do want to say that like, man, when I was first becoming an artist at like 12 years old, and I was still wide-eyed, like if I had the resource that it is then, like my life would be just like dramatically different. I would have shortcutted a lot of like anguish and anxiety, but just to say that like we teach these specific skills, the skills that I outlined that you need to like onboard to get there, we teach them. Not only that, but like we teach them with like paint by numbers sorts of campaigns that you can just sort of copy and paste to get your legs underneath you to get to a place okay, I get how this works. I did it. Just like playing a cover teaches you how to play an instrument. Just like rewriting sales letters teaches you how to write sales letters. And then beyond that, like while you're implementing that, we have a community of the most amazing artists like doing this stuff for themselves that I've ever seen. The testimony, like the responses we've been getting, like from the nominees for Indie Awards and from people in the community is just insane. Like it's so cool that people who are committed to this path that we've been talking about in this episode, like when they see those fruits, like when Taylor Bradshaw said, like, I'm pretty sure that I can go full-time music now.
Yeah, that was Taylor. Yep.
So cool, dude. Like, so yeah, like if any of this sounds cool to you, like join Indie Pro. It's awesome.
This was fun, dude. This is how you stay focused, and this is how you get ahead in a distracted music industry. So I hope that you guys dug this. This was fun for me and Cirque, for sure, at the end of this beautiful Tuesday. So thank you guys for listening. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you next time on Creative Juice, where we'll get more tactical, more strategic, and maybe we'll break your brains a little bit more. Who knows? We'll see you then.
Peace out, Indies.
East Coast, West Coast, say what?